Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today we're going to be showcasing one of the decks that I'm going to be climbing with here at the start of Season 6, and that is going to be, of course, what else but Tri-Brigade Zoodiac. Now, kind of like most seasons in the past, I am going to be using multiple decks for my Season 6 initial laddering here. That's going to be mostly Tri-Zoo and Sword Soul Tenyi. I think I'll just kind of bounce back and forth between those decks. Normally, I kind of like to lay out a bit more of a plan, like, okay, for this part of the grind, I'll use this deck, and then when things get a bit more serious, I'll switch to this deck. I don't know, this time it's a little bit weird because, you know, this is kind of the first format, or at least the first start of a season, where, like, now there's two definite tier 1 decks, whereas it was always like, before in the past, it was like, Tri-Zoo was the definite tier 1 deck, and then all the other decks were kind of like middling around tier 2. Drytron kind of breached into tier 1 a little bit, but was mostly upper tier 2. So then, you know, normally, you know, for the first part of the climb, I would use something like Adamantipator, that was a little bit lower tier, and then I'd switch over to Tri-Zoo, which is also a deck I knew better as opposed to being a higher tier. But this time, the higher tier deck, Sword Soul Tenyi, is actually the one I don't know. I mean, I feel like I would like to think anyway, I know it decently, but I don't know it quite as well as Tri-Zoo. So it's really going to depend, I think, on how many Sword Soul Tenyis I end up seeing on my climb. Because the more of those we see, that's probably going to be the less Tri-Zoo I use, because Tri-Zoo does kind of have a bit of a weak matchup against Sword Soul Tenyi. Sword Soul Tenyi does tend to be have the slightly more favored matchup there, and that might even also end up causing me to tech out my Sword Soul Tenyi build against the mirror match. It could happen, although, you know, with 3 crossouts, that's, you're already playing a lot of tech against the mirror match. But in any case, we're not here to talk about Sword Soul Tenyi. We are here to talk about good old Tri-Brigade Zoodiac. So, like with Sword Soul Tenyi, I like to do this from time to time with my decks. As opposed to just editing my current build, I'll just, like, clean slate, I'll just take out all the cards and, like, rebuild it from the ground up. That's generally how I prefer to edit decks. Like, I don't like thinking, like, okay, I'll sub this out and sub this in, because then I kind of lose track of what I'm subbing in, out, or in for what. I kind of just prefer to wipe everything clean and just build it again from the ground up, and usually you don't end up too different, or at least I don't when I do this process. Like, it's funny, I did it for this deck, but I think, I looked at my previous list earlier, I don't quite remember now, but I think I actually did just end up with the same 40 card deck that I had before. So, but that's good though. That shows that, you know, even when thinking, okay, I'm going to rebuild this up for the new season with what I think is optimal, it's like, cool, okay, I was already playing what I figured was the optimal build. So, like with all my other deck profiles, I'm going to go through this card by card at first, then we'll talk about the individual cards in the deck, their functions, their roles, and then we will take a look at some replays to showcase the deck's power. Now, again, like the other, I think this is coming out after my Sword Soul Tenyi Season 6 update, so if it doesn't, this might sound a bit awkward, but whatever. Like my other deck profile, we're also going to be watching some replays, or not watching some replays. I totally lost track of what I was saying mid-sentence there. Gotta love it. I think I was actually saying we're going to watch some replays. Or no, I remember now. I was going to say that the replays are going to be from the end of Season 5, not from Season 6 just yet. We're going to be seeing Season 6 games, of course, in the this first week here of the season. You'll be seeing my games as I climb back up to Diamond 1. Just know that these games that I'm going to show you are from the end of Season 5. We're not in Season 6 just yet. But without further ado, whatever, let's just go ahead and get to the deck. We've got 3 Tri-Brigade Nervall, 3 Maxx, 2 Tri-Brigade Kerass, 3 Tri-Brigade Kitt, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 1 Zoodiac Whiptail, 1 Zoodiac Thoroughblade, 1 Zoodiac Ramram, 2 Tri-Brigade Fraktall, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 2 Fusion Destiny, 1 Lightning Storm, 3 Fire Formation Tenki, 2 Called by the Grave, 2 Crossout Designator, 2 Forbidden Droplet, 2 Infinite Impermanence, and then 2 Tri-Brigade Revolt. Down here in the extra deck, we've got Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, Zoodiac Trident, Zoodiac Borbo, Zoodiac Chakanine, Zeus, Divine Arsenal Zeus, Sky Thunder, I should say, Salomon Great Almirage, Protoplant Vert Anaconda, Ancient Warriors Oath Double Dragon Lords. We've got Tri-Brigade Ferajit the Baron Blossom, and Tri-Brigade Bearbrum the Rampant Rampager, Racefulgur the Desperate Doom Eagle, Tri-Brigade Rugal the Silver Sheller, Access Code Talker, and then 2 Tri-Brigade Shurig the Ominous Omen. So yeah, extra deck also still the same. We're still running Racefulgur over Appaloosa. I can see a world where I take out Racefulgur for Appaloosa. That's kind of like the flex spot in the extra deck now, which is kind of interesting, right? That before, you know, before DPE came out, it was like the extra deck was 15 cards on lock, and I considered the extra deck kind of non-negotiable, but inadvertently, by adding a new engine that took up more slots in the extra deck, we actually kind of, in a way, sort of freed up a slot in the extra deck. I do think the 15th card should either probably be Racefulgur or Appaloosa. There is like an argument to maybe not playing double Dragon Lords, but I think this card is too good not to play. You don't make it out on turn 1 nearly as often as we used to, but it's still just a really good disruption option that's just really easy to make. If you've got a spare Tri-Brigade effect, you can just manage to and make this going into your opponent's turn. Tends to be pretty nice there, but yeah, I still kind of like Racefulgur because you know, with DPE now, we don't go into Appaloosa nearly as often on turn 1, and the Racefulgur is just a really, not only is it a good effect to put back DPE, it's also just a good effect in general, and is a good way to kind of like shortcut into access code. We can just like, you can like summon a Nervall, banish 3, make Racefulgur, you know, put back their monster, and then just go into access code pretty easily like that. So that's why I like Racefulgur in the extra deck still. As far as the main deck goes, I mean, our ratios for like the Tri-Brigade stuff is pretty typical. We are playing the Zoodiac engine. We are not playing any Rescue Cats. We're not playing the pure variant. We're just playing the zoos here. The pure variant has been seeing, you know, more popularity lately, as well as including Rescue Cat in the zoo variant. I definitely don't think that Rescue Cat is a bad option in this deck. I just haven't included it for a few reasons. One is space. I just don't think I have the room for it. Two is, you know, I know I have a lot of craft materials, but they would still be multiple ultra rares to craft, and it would be a highly experimental card choice, and I tend to really only commit to crafting an ultra rare once I'm fairly confident that it's just the optimal you know, use, or the optimal card to use in the deck, and I'm just not quite confident that's the case for Rescue Cat, and not only within the Tri-Brigade variant, or the Zoodiac variant of Tri-Brigade, but also just using the pure variant, because the main reason, and reason number 3, I don't really like using Rescue Cat, or I'm not using Rescue Cat, is that the card gets stopped way too easily. There's so many different things that can disrupt it. Valor and Imperm, which are seeing an increase of popularity in play overall because they are good against Sword Soul, it is susceptible to those. Obviously susceptible to Ash. It's really, you know, if your opponent chains Maxx, you're kind of committed because it eats your normal summon. Now, granted, of course, those cards are all still good against Tri-Brigade Zoodiac anyway. It's just a matter of, like, is it necessary? Like, it's good. It's not a bad option for the deck. It is good. It is a 1-card combo into DPE plus Revolt. We can't discredit that or disregard it, but yeah, if I was going to cut things from the deck, I'd probably just cut Zoodiacs and then just make it a pure Tri-Brigade deck. But again, I think the Zoodiac variant is still stronger at this time, mostly because we do still have Drident, you know? And even when Drident got banned in the OCG, there were still variants of Tri-Brigade that were still playing Zoodiacs just to get the Zeus. So for me personally, that's kind of what it comes down to. I don't have the space for Rescue Cat. I don't think it's particularly strong. Now, if the data over time ends up proving that the decks that are seeing the most success are all playing Rescue Cat, and not only that, but also like Rescue Cat is seeing more and more play across decks that are doing well in general, then yeah, then it might be time to reevaluate my opinion. We always got to be open to reevaluating our opinions, right? And I've stressed this point before, but I really do want to stress it. Like, just because I'm not playing a card, or just because I say I don't like this card in my build, does not mean I think it's a bad card or even a bad choice for the deck. But I'm more just giving the reasons why I'm not playing it. So, but again, you know, and I'm not saying I will never play it. Like I said, if it does become proves over time that it is optimal to use Rescue Cat, then I will definitely start including Rescue Cats. As far as other options in the deck, you know, we're playing some like kind of techy disruption options here, like the Ghost Belle and the Lightning Storm, but I like these cards not only as disruption options, but also I like playing them for the Crossout Designators. We've actually been playing Crossout Designator in our Tri-Zoo deck for a little bit now, which I haven't before Season 5, even though, you know, some builds were playing Crossout Designator, mostly because, honestly, you know, we're in more of a Crossout based format now, with Sword Soul being so prominent. and just disruption becoming more important in general in this kind of a format than it was in the last format. A little bit more. It's weird. It's kind of hard to explain. It's more important in different ways, but regardless, Crossout Designator right now kind of acts more as a quick play spell version of Solemn Judgment than it did ever, before in Master Duel's history. So that's why I like including it, and I really like having the Ghost spell. Again, not only as a disruption option, but for the Crossout Designator, because this card is seeing, it's not seeing like a lot of play right now, but it's definitely seeing more play, and more people are getting, getting into it. And Ghost Spell is really good against Revolt. Ghost Spell just stops Revolt in its tracks, and that's obviously really bad for us. So setting Crossout Designator alongside Revolt is a really good play. It's also, like I touched on earlier, the reason why I'm playing Storm and Feather Duster both. I kind of thought about like taking Storm out and only playing Feather Duster, but well, one, I actually just like Lightning Storm in general as disruption, but two, if you're setting like Revolt plus Crossout Designator, it's not uncommon that you'll also set like a Call By or a Droplet or an Imperm alongside those, and then you've got a whole bunch of back row, and then you're open up to getting hit with one of these. But that's another good function for Crossout Designator in this deck in particular, is that it can like protect the rest of your back row. If your opponent tries to Feather Duster or Lightning Storm your back row, well, you can just flip Crossout Designator, and then you can just send your Storm or Feather Duster and stop it. Even if you're just setting Crossout Designator and Revolt, it can still be worth it to negate the Storm or Feather Duster to save your Revolt, because otherwise then you're forced to chain Revolt and summon your Shurig at a time where you may not want to, and then you just lose your Crossout Designator anyway. So again, even just setting those two cards alongside each other actually does make a huge difference, which again is why one of the reasons why I like having the Storm and Feather Duster both in the deck there. Again, also as well as the Ghost spell. Let's see here. I've covered the Zoodiacs. I've covered Rescue Cat. We've talked about the Crossout Designator and the stuff it negates. Oh, yeah, we are still playing Forbidden Droplet. I've touched on this before, but just because Drytron isn't as prominent as it once was, doesn't mean we just take the Droplets out. Droplet is still a really good card. It's actually really good against Sword Soul, which is why it's still important to keep it in the build, I think. Is because we can just, negate our opponent's Shishao and Baron that they tend to set up on turn 1, or their Changing, or just, all the things they set up on turn 1. We can just use Droplets to go ahead and negate them. And then that's a pretty easy way to deal with Sword Soul's board, because all their negates, if they go first, does make it more difficult for us on turn 2, which is one of the reasons it's a bit of a difficult matchup. So yeah, plus this deck also is one of those decks that just has resources to spare, typically to send for Droplet. And it can often be like a spell we're resolving, it can be like a Tenki on our board, and then as always, it's good to cross out for other decks that happen to be playing Droplet as well. I do still like the 2 Imperm in here though, as a hand trap option. Again, like I touched on earlier, Imperm is especially good in this current format against Sword Souls. I would really like to be playing a third. That's what it was really close between the Lightning Storm and the third Imperm. I decided it was I just very narrowly wanted to try Lightning Storm more, but if Sword Soul Tenyi is as prominent as I think it's going to be, it's actually probably just right to take out this Lightning Storm for the third Imperm, but we'll see that as we actually head into Season 6, so... Okay, I think that's about everything I wanted to discuss as far as the deck and the tech options that I'm playing Go. As always, if you have any questions and or suggestions about the build, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. You guys are really good about giving good feedback and constructive criticism. So yeah, as always, I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this build. But for now, let's go ahead and watch some replays from some test games at the end of Season 5 here. Alright, so this first game we're going to be taking a look at is going to be against Sword Soul Tenyi. So it's always nice to feature games where we can, just always nice to feature good games in this matchup, because, this is going to be a very common matchup, and is also, like I said earlier, one that is slightly disadvantaged for us. Not too much, but slightly. So we're going second, but we open a really good going second hand, as we've got both Imperm and Droplet here, so that's really nice. Like I mentioned earlier, Imperm really good against Sword Souls for this exact reason. They normal summon the Moye, we negate it, and then they're really sad because they can't do anything else. So that's really nice. They set 2 cards. It definitely pays to keep in mind that one of these could very easily be Blackout. But, you know, we've got just a couple of Nervalls and a Whiptail, so we don't have a whole lot of options here as far as what we can really do here. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and activate the Nervall, but my opponent's got the Call By. Fortunately, though, we've got the Crossout Designator, which Call By is yet another card that Crossout Designator is just such a good card right now. I mean, it was a really good card before, too, don't get me wrong, but in this format, the decks that are popular are slightly more homogenized in the answers that they're playing as opposed to previous formats, which is one of the main reasons that Crossout Designator becomes so good right now. Opponent does have the Maxx here. That's definitely unfortunate, and we don't really have a way to negate it, but we're going to have to keep playing here. Obviously, stopping here is not really an option, so we're just going to have to give them a couple of draws. I'm going to give them 2 more as I'm going to go into Vert Anaconda and then DPE here. Of course, had they not played Maxx, our line wouldn't have been too different. I was still planning for going into DPE, but I would have felt more inclined to go for like a Revolt as well. But yep, here is the Blackout, but yeah, this is totally fine because we've got a DPE anyway. That's also one of the other reasons I didn't want to go into the Bear Room and try to set up a Revolt, is because, again, like I touched on earlier, I suspected they had Blackout and be able to pretty easily answer any Revolt I tried to set up anyway. So we'll go ahead and set Droplet here, mostly because why not? And yeah, our opponent's got 5 cards, and that's a little bit scary, but we've got DPE and a Droplet, not Dropout. And yeah, our opponent just passes, so even though they Maxx and got a few draws, looks like their hand is pretty dead here, which is definitely really, really good for us. I'm going to go ahead and summon the Zoodiac Whiptail, and then just start going into a Zeus setup here as we go into the Borbo. And this is another reason why I don't think, because I've seen some people make the argument that, like, well, DPE is just a better Dryden, so it's got to be either DPE or the Zoo line. And no, it definitely does not have to be one or the other. The two can definitely coexist very easily. They even coexist in the scenario we're seeing here because, remember, Zeus sends instead of destroys. So if Zeus sends a DPE to the graveyard, it won't get the effect back to add itself, but I mean, that's fine because DPE can just pop itself and then another card on the board, so it's really not that big of a deal. And then we go ahead and try to get our draws here, but we end up getting Ash. I could have actually tried to get the draws earlier. It would have been the correct play. I'm still trying to get into the habit of remembering that, like, oh hey, on top of this crazy disruption engine, you know, your DPE engine also gets you a free pot of greed. But yeah, as you can see, the opponent concedes here because there's no way they can stand up to both DPE and Zeus. Like, it's just not doable. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it definitely does not have to be one or the other. And I think I've touched on this before in previous videos, but I suppose it's worth mentioning here that I think saying DPE is just a better Dryden is a flawed comparison. The two serve very different roles in the deck. I mean, yeah, they're both disruption, you know, single card destruction, like level of disruption, but you know, Dryden is able to allow us to combo in ways that DPE definitely does not, because DPE is very restrictive on its summoning methods, or yeah, not only its summoning methods, well yeah, its summoning methods. Like, you can't really make anything else after you go into DPE, which is not the case with Dryden. And then of course there's also Zeus as well, which if you're trying to make the comparison that DPE is a better Dryden, you could kind of say that Zeus is a better DPE, but again, I wouldn't really say that because I don't think that's a good comparison. So that's just my 2 cents on that matter. But okay, let's go ahead and watch the next game here. Okay, so this game is going to be against a classic stun deck. I mean, we're talking Fossil Dynas, Barrier Statues, Banishers, Moon Mirror Shields, the works. You know, I gotta say, as annoying as this... Oh, and then of course we also open a going second hand when we go first, so we just kind of have to set the cross out and the Droplet and pass here, but... As I wanted to just say this at the beginning of this game real quick. As annoying as stun decks might be, it is fairly impressive that they're still able to do what they were, you know, starting to do 15 years ago when they really started to be a thing, like the good old, you know, Thunder King, Fossil Dyna, Banisher dot deck. Yeah, 15 years later, it's still a thing, and it's still a viable rogue deck. So definitely gonna Ash the Extravagance here, and then yep, here is the Fossil Dyna with the Moon Mirror Shield. So really can't battle over it or special summon. So yeah, you know, most players might be tempted to just auto concede here, but now let's go ahead and draw and see what we can get here. And actually, I can go ahead and activate Tenki, and they're going to Dark Bribe. So, yeah, definitely, like, I mean, this feels like it's straight out of 2010, this stun deck here. But we drew a Fusion Destiny, so I can use my Droplet here. Definitely going to send Nibiru to negate this Fossil Dyna. Now we can use Fusion Destiny to blow up this Fossil Dyna. So... yeah, you know, you never know. It's like, especially, like, you know, we got the Tenki negated, and even when activating the Tenki, I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do to out this Rune Mirror Shield. You know, could have been very easily tempted to just scoop there, but it was only through the weirdest circumstance of getting Dark Bribed into drawing exactly Fusion Destiny that we ended up drawing the out. So, that's why I say to, you know, never concede too early. Yeah, because you just never know how you're going to come back. Also, I set the Ghost Spell here, not only as extra protection, but also to make it easier to get my Celestial draw next turn. Because, you know, if I drew another monster and I can only normal summon it or the Belle, then I wouldn't be able to draw two. But, yeah, my opponent tries to set up another Floodgate monster with a Moon Mirror Shield here, but fortunately, good old DPE. Man, DPE really does make every matchup better. Like, even the stun matchup. It's kind of insane, honestly. It really is. Not that you need me to tell you how insane DPE is, but yeah, we didn't draw a monster here, so you know we could have just set Ghost Spell at this point. But you know, another reason to set Ghost Spell early is you never know, you might draw a monster that you want to normal summon. So yeah, we didn't. We drew a Droplet and a Revolt. Opponent's going to try to put the DPE back in our extra deck, but we'll activate the effect. They Solemn Strike, but here's the cool thing about DPE. Even if it gets negated, and if its effect gets negated and then it gets destroyed, and guess what? It still got destroyed, so it's still going to resolve. So, I don't know, maybe my opponent thought that the Solemn Strike was going to be, you know, negate both of DPE's effects, but no, they're two different effects. So, DPE gets hit with the Solemn Strike, its effect to destroy a card on each side of the field gets negated, and then it gets destroyed. And then that chain has resolved. Now, DPE's second effect can activate because it got destroyed. Yeah, its first effect got negated, but that doesn't matter. It got destroyed and is now in the graveyard. So now the second effect activates. So if you're wondering, if you were thinking, maybe perhaps like my opponent did, which perhaps might have been why they conceded there, they might have been thinking, oh, well, I can use Solemn Strike to negate DPE, and then because it's negated, it won't come back. No, that's not how it works. It's only if the second effect is negated, because, again, they are two separate effects. So, all right, let's go ahead and watch another game here. This next game is going to be against a Stealth Kragen deck, which is a neat little kind of like control-y, kind of combo-y deck. I don't know. I've thought about maybe trying it before, but well, I'd rather pull Stealth Kragans than craft them, so we're going to go second here, but like we've got a Maxx and a Droplet, so that's totally fine. As soon as I see a Silent Sea Nettle, as soon as I see this card, I immediately know, oh, this is the Stealth Kragen deck. So I'm just going to go ahead and Maxx in response to the normal summon because I know they've got more copies of this card. And I know they play like Silent Anglers. I know there's just a lot of stuff that can be special summoned from the hand if they've got a normal summoned monster on board. Like a normal summoned, not normal summoned, just a water monster on board. The fact that they normal summoned a Silent Sea Nettle immediately, without hesitation, is what clued me in that they were going to special something right away. So that's why I activated Maxx in response, and that's why my opponent set a card and passed here. So, you know, it just goes to show, especially with Tri-Brigade Zoodiac, but in general, but especially with this deck, it really pays to have, like, just a general knowledge of how most other decks play. Now, you don't have to know every deck's combo lines. It's actually really great if you do. Again, especially for this deck. Because Tri-Zoo is not really about setting up floodgates, it's more about disruption. Knowing the choke points of your opponent's combo lines is so important. Again, like with this deck here, like I was just explaining, the choke point of this combo line is right at the beginning. Like I wanted to Maxx right away to either get maximum draws or just stop them from playing, which we did the latter, which is totally fine. So again, just wanted to pause and point out there again, especially with decks like this where we rely on disruption, not floodgates, how important it is to know good choke points. Now, opponent's going to flip up Goza match here, which is obviously not good for me. So this actually would have been a really good game to show live because when this Goza match got flipped, you know, I stopped and looked at my hand and I really thought for a bit, like, okay, what can I do here? What can I do? Because my initial thought is like, oh, they have a Gozen. Well, I'll probably just have to activate this Fusion Destiny and sit on DPE. But then I thought, no. Like, we surely have a better line than that, right? And then, of course, I pretty quickly realized, like, oh, duh, Tenki. Like, all the Zoodiacs are Earth. This is actually, I mean, this is a very niche reason. But, I mean, Gozen Match is actually a floodgate card that is seeing more play recently because of Sword Soul Tenyi using so many different attributes. And it doesn't hurt, of course, that Zoodiac Tri-Brigade also uses a lot of different attributes. So, you know, the two top tier 1 decks are very susceptible to this this Gozen Match here. So I would expect in decks like Stun, Eldritch, or, you know, this Stealth Kragen deck runs pretty much all water monsters, so we can get away with it too. But I would expect to see more Gozen matches in the future, so it pays to know what lines you can play around them with, and Zoodiacs are one of those lines. They're all Earth, so we can just go into Trident and pop the Gozen. Easy peasy. But the, you know, the advent of this card is another reason why I kind of like the Zoos over SUCAT. That's a very minor point, I will admit, but another one I just wanted to make real quick. So, like I mentioned, we can just go into Trident and pop the Gozen that way. I am going to go into Borbo first. Of course, that's going to make it a little more difficult to go into Zeus, but I mean, like I said, Zeus isn't what I'm primarily concerned about here. Primarily, I'm just worried about getting this Gozen match off the board, which I do, and then my opponent concedes right away, because they obviously know that I have other plays at this point. Now, funnily enough, it was pretty much just going to be overlay into an attack mode. Actually, I should have gone into Chakanine. I don't know why I went into Borbo. I should have overlaid Chakanine, then Trident, then detached Chakanine to pop. Then I could have made Borbo, and then I could have still Fusion Destiny. Well, I wouldn't have Fusion Destinied. I would have used Borbo. Actually, it's funny. As I'm replaying this game, or rewatching this replay, now I'm realizing that even though they just conceded right away, so it kind of didn't matter, it still would have had they not conceded. Yeah, I shouldn't have made the Borbo there. I should have gone Chakanine, Trident, and then gone to Borbo, then moved to battle phase, attacked directly with Borbo, then made Zeus, and then Fusion Destiny for DP. Because remember, if you Fusion Destiny, you can only summon Dark Heroes for the rest of the turn. So I can't Fusion Destiny and then go into Zeus. So, wow, interesting. And that's actually another reason why I really like the replay feature. And this is something you can do at home. Save some games, even if they seem like obvious wins like this. Just save a few games and watch back. You'll catch little things like that where you realize, like, oh, that line actually would have been way better, even though it seemed insignificant at the time. So, all right, I think I have one more game for us to watch. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And sure enough, we do have one more game here, which is going to be against a pure Unchained deck. Yeah, just straight up pure Unchained. I've never come across this deck before this game, so that was pretty interesting to kind of stumble my way in against this deck here. But we have a pretty good opening hand here. We're going first. We've got the Fraktall plus the Kerass, so we definitely have a DPE plus Revolt setup. We can go into that with Fraktall plus any Tri-Brigade monster. If you would like more in-depth explanations about the combo lines, feel free to check out my description, where I will link my combo guides here for not only generic kind of Tri-Brigade combos, but also the combo guide for specifically setting up DPE plus Revolt as well. So, funnily, we drew the Fusion Destiny off of the Farigite there, but since we've already made the Anaconda, you know, we'll just go ahead and put it back. That's totally fine. Yep, using Kerass to make the Bearbrum, and then we use Ver Anaconda to make the DPE. This is very important for making DPE, or setting up DPE plus Revolt in this deck, because one comment I've seen a lot is like, hey, I made my Vert, but I can't summon DPE, although I have everything in the deck, why can't I summon it? What probably happened was, if you use Bearbrum as a material to make Vert Anaconda, and then use Bearbrum's Surge effect, remember that for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon except Tri-Brigade monsters. So even though the summon already resolved for your Vert, from that point on, after activating Bearbrum's effect, then you can only special summon Tri-Brigade, so you won't be able to special DPE with Vert's effect. If you do it that way, you have to make the Vert, then summon the Bearbrum, then summon the DPE, use the DPE to pop the Bearbrum, and search the Revolt that way. That's how you have to do it if you're going to set up the DPE plus Revolt. We'll go ahead and put back the Ghost spell here, because I've already got a call by, so I can just negate effects that activate in the graveyard that way. opponent's going to lead with a Pot of Prosperity for 6, being so high, and just in general, you know, even if it was only for 3, but especially being for such a high amount of cards, we're definitely going to go ahead and Ash that to prevent excavations there. Yeah, so at this point, my opponent normal summons their first Unchained monster. Of course, in the actual game, I stopped and read this, and I thought, okay, Unchaineds, I vaguely know they're all about destroying, so that being the case, and also the fact that they use their normal summon, I'm just going to go ahead and banish this card. That way, if they have an effect in hand that maybe relies on, you know, destroying one of their on-board Unchained monsters in order to do stuff, we can deny them that target, and like I said, they've already normal summoned. So, generally speaking, if my opponent commits their normal summon, I'm a little more fine just using Revolt to get a Shurag to banish whatever they play. So, now I don't really understand this. Well, okay, actually I do understand this. Yeah, they Dark Ruler no more, so that way I can't DPE and pop one of their back rows. That's why they use it there. I was about to say I don't understand why they use it, but then I remembered and I realized, okay, so yep. That is why. We're going to go ahead and, of course, get our DPE back during the standby phase. Our opponent's got an Ice Dragon's Prison. I'm going to naturally respond with DPE, try to pop the other back row, but then they flip up a Skill Drain, which is definitely going to throw a little bit of a wrench into our plans. It won't be too bad here, because even though we're going to lose out on our DPE and it's going to get banished, we'll still have the Shurag, and we have the Fraktall as well, so we can do a lot of damage here. And we've got another Revolt too. It's not super useful here, but it's something, you know. Plus our opponent only has one, well, soon to be 2 other cards at this point, so I'm thinking like, yeah, there's probably not too much more they can do here. And yeah, they just go ahead and set a monster and pass here. Now, what I actually should have done here in order to help ensure lethal is, and I kind of only realized this retroactively, but what I could have done here to ensure a lethal, especially given the fact that, you know, our opponent's playing Unchained and their monsters getting destroyed trigger their effects, I could have linked Fraktall, Shurag, and Vert Anaconda into an access code talker, right? Its effects would be negated, but we still could activate it to banish itself and then target the skill drain, or not target, but you know what I mean, we could have then destroyed the skill drain, because by banishing itself, the access code talker is no longer on the field. Therefore, skill drain won't negate it, because it only negates monster effects that are on the field. Access code would resolve, popping the skill drain. I then could have flipped my Revolt, summoning my second Shurag, and banishing the face down monster, and then attacked for lethal, you know, ensuring that this destroyed monster wouldn't activate. But yeah, I just decided to go straight into battle phase here. I attack with the Shurag. It's an Unchained monster, and sure enough, it's got an effect where, because it's destroyed, they can summon an Unchained from their deck. So now I have to go into main phase 2, and now I'm going to do the line that I just mentioned. So a little more proactive thought would have been allowed me to win on this turn. So it definitely pays to keep things like that in mind. So that's why I wanted to show this replay in particular, is to remind you, like, even when it seems like lethal is obvious, you know, it definitely pays to think a bit proactively and be like, okay, even if lethal seems obvious, is there a way to guarantee it here? And this is why, you know, some people kind of complain like, oh, I don't understand, my opponent, like, so obviously has lethal, why don't they just go for it? It's like, it's not always that obvious, you know, especially to somebody who doesn't know what your face down monster is, or what if you've got cards in hand. It could be a hand trap, you know, you never know. So that's why I say, you know, it's always takes time to respect the opponent and assume they have the out. Respect that they're always playing to their outs, and they might have something to stop what might seem like an obvious lethal here. So we'll throw Kerass on at the end just to set up a DDL, just in case our opponent tries anything else. You know, we have another bit of disruption during their turn here. And yeah, they just go ahead and concede, because they realize with the DDL I can just bounce stuff back, bouncing not being destroying, so they won't be able to get any of their Unchained effects off by that route. And yep, I mean, even though, you know, again, it didn't ultimately end up mattering and we had lethal pretty easily anyway, like I said, it would have paid to have thought a bit more proactively about doing that line in order to kind of ensure that we had a lethal. But yep, that's the games I've got to show off here. Let's go ahead and take one more look at the deck. Okay, everyone, so as always, I wanted to thank you very, very much, especially for watching to the very end of the video like this, but just for watching in general. I mean, I appreciate every single view. I really, really do. Yeah, so yeah, Tri-Brigade, I'm going to use it a fair bit. I'm probably going to use it a little bit earlier into the season, like, you know, with Diamond, we go down to Plat 5, probably like, you know, going down 1 rank. I don't think we go back down to Gold. Actually, I can look at this real quick, can't I? Let me, haven't they issued information about this? Let me see something. I know this is a great time to be looking at this, but types of ranks, make demotion, reset. It doesn't say actually, does it? But I imagine it'll be like, you know, because before when you're at Plat 1, you would go down to Gold 5. So I imagine we'll just go down from Diamond 1 to Plat 5. So I think for my Platinum, you know, for a good bit of my Platinum games, I think is when I'll use mostly Tri-Zoo. And then probably when I get to Diamond, I'll switch over to Sword Soul. But I might end up just bouncing back and forth between them anyway. Who knows, you know? But either way, I definitely do plan to use this deck for at least a decent bit of my climb at the beginning of Season 6 here, back up to Diamond 1. Going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. You always get the most, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Intense, I guess. Cutting edge games. Cutthroat. Not cutting edge, but games at the beginning of the season when everybody's trying as hard as they can to get climb up as fast as they can. It's one of the more exciting parts of the format. I tend to like it quite a bit, so we're definitely going to have some fun doing that, as you can expect those games coming up here soon. But, yep, like I said, thank you very much for watching to the end like this. I'm especially appreciative if you're commenting and subscribing, as I love hearing your guys' feedback, and subscriptions are, of course, the best way to get notifications of when I post. But, you know, even if you're not commenting or subscribing, as long as you're watching, that is far more than enough for me, is just to have you along for my Master Duel journey. So without further ado, this is XLex signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.